What's up, everyone? I guess welcome to week 3 in the NFL. Adam Kaufman, Matt LaMarca, and Jeff Ulrich. We're here with you on the slate. And of course, looking back on week 2, looking ahead to week 3, which is only days away. Boys, it's good to see you on the heels of a pair of games on a Monday night, which is always fun to see. Jeff, what's going on?
Not too much, man. Yeah, just, recovering from the thrashing that I saw the Vikings and the Titans take. I didn't take a thrashing; they did. I just feel bad for them. So, but no, as it was interesting. I mean, I thought those games would be closer, especially the Vikings Eagles game. But at the same time, I like the confirmation bias that I got with the Eagles team last night. I know Mark is nodding. Baby. Yes, so we're all very happy about the Eagles. Cheers to us.
LaMarca, I think as Jeff put it, we should be mindful of the thrashing and feel bad for ourselves a little bit because we had to watch it. We were hoping for a little bit of competition. Hey, at least, maybe not the Titans and the Bills, but the other game should have given us something.
I thoroughly enjoyed watching the Eagles because that was my biggest bet of the early season. I thought they deserved to be favored by more than just 2.5 points. So that was great. And also I watched Max Scherzer pitch 2/3 of a perfect game. So I had that going for me.
Until apparently it was time for him to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, a perfect game is one thing, but he needs to be healthy for the playoffs. So I get why they did it. But yeah, I had a phenomenal week. My pools article that goes up on DK Nation on Fridays, I was 5-0 on my bets, bringing me to 9-1 for the season. It has been about as good of a start as I could have possibly asked for. The one big exception, I was dead wrong on the Colts last week. I wear that. That was it was a bad handicap on my part. The Colts are just frankly not good. So we'll adjust, we'll move on. But overall, I'm pretty ecstatic with how my process has been so far this season.
Well, own the moment, man. Plug away. I mean, when should people expect to see these DK Nation articles? What are you putting out on Twitter? I mean, give the people what they need to know so they can tail your bets.
Fridays, DK Nation. They do usually tweet it out. So make sure you're following the DK Nation Twitter account. But yeah, it's 5 picks against the spread every week.
Well, so before we go back to Jeff, give me a little bit more about your process, since you obviously alluded to it, in terms of believing in what is happening so far. And clearly the success is there, 9 out of 10. So what generally early in the season is your process?
We talked about this a little bit last week, but I have my baseline power rating that I have for each team. I use those to make calculated spreads for each game. Then I factor in things like travel and rest. I look at the public betting percentages, where the sharp money is landing. I kind of use my initial lines to give a gauge of what I'm interested in, but I still probably lean on the sharp betting numbers more than anything, because part of what I've found to be successful is that, or part of the reason why I like betting on sports is you can look at the paper of the guy next to you. And if you're looking at the sharps, they're sharps for a reason, right? They're the best at what they do. If you could see, the best DFS players, DraftKings lineups before the slate lock, you'd probably look at them, right? But we get to do that with sports betting. And I think that's why it's so advantageous, at least during NFL season for casual bettors.
I did find this really interesting, Jeff. You weren't here on this show last week, the one LaMarca mentioned. Meiselman was here, but LaMarca was talking about how he makes his own individual power rankings. And not just that, it's not simply a, 1 through 30, and here are the teams that I like. And LaMarca, I do want to know if your top 5 has changed at all from week 2 to going into week 3 now. But he adjusts lines to his own liking as well, Moose. He just totally rewrites the spread.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good process of way to do it. I mean, I definitely do something similar in terms of just like, going through each game and assigning them a value. But the power rankings is interesting because I think that lets you put it in a, it lets you see it visually. If you like this team and it's not ranked high in whatever rankings you're using, then, you're probably going to go back and question it. So I mean, giving teams a value early in the week is a good way to start off, in my opinion, because it'll identify spots that you're going to look at harder. So I'm waiting for Lamarcus article to come out because I'm struggling over here.
Your first 10 or 2 weeks have not gone as well as what you're saying.
I mean, it's not been terrible, but I mean, like I regret not going bigger on the Eagles. I regret also, I didn't bet the Colts, but I regret not betting against them for the second week in a row. It's been fine. It's not been what you call a hot start, but it's not been like a disaster either by any means.
Lamarca, is that top 5 still the same? We have 6 undefeated teams in the NFL left.
Yeah. So for me, the top 5 right now, Bills, clearly number 1. I keep raising their number each week. Right now, I have them as 9 points better than league average. I started them this year at 8 points, and what they've done to start the year, like, you can't really find any faults with anything, right? They destroyed the defending champions on the road in week 1, and then they beat the doors off another playoff team last night. So I have them up now a full point, up to 9, but honestly, that still may not be high enough. After them, I have the Chiefs, a full 2 points lower, basically. Then I have the Bucks. The Chargers have moved up to 4. I haven't necessarily adjusted their ranking a ton, but I have moved down the Rams since the start of the season and the Packers since the start of the season. So for me, it's Bills 1, Chiefs 2, Bucks 3, Chargers 4, Rams 5.
Chargers, just because you brought them up, I feel inclined to mention, we got into this a little bit at some point last week. I don't remember which day it was, what show it was, but Chargers, that's the week 3 survivor pick that I'm going with, Lamarca. Sitting at 7-point favorites right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah, and again, this is a game that makes no sense to me. I have this calculated spread at least 10 points, probably even 10.5. And I've moved the Jaguars up in my rankings quite a bit since the start of the year, but they're still not nearly as good as the Chargers. I think that the way that the Chargers have been rushing the passer has been impressive this year. You look at that game against the Chiefs, they dropped like 5 interceptions from Patrick Mahomes. And then the Chiefs get a pick 6 of their own, basically right at the goal line. You know, like a lot of the advanced metrics say that the Chargers were the better team in that contest. So I think that this Chargers team is probably a bit undervalued at the moment. The Jaguars may be a bit overvalued. They have looked competitive. Trevor Lawrence has been better than expected, but again, they've beaten the Washington football team, and they've beaten the Colts.
You can call them the Commanders now if you want
to the Commanders.
Right. They lost one of those games. Yes.
Yeah.
I always want to call them the Guardians just because. So I'm just sticking with Washington football team because I know that I'm comfortable saying that.
Who did you have? Sorry, who was your top 4? I just missed it. I have the Chargers ranked basically, the same as you, but who did you have ranked in front of them? Obviously the Bills.
He had the Chargers at 4. So your top 3 were
Bills, Chiefs, and Bucks.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the Bucks are interesting. I admittedly thought that we'd see some regression from them, but it's pretty hard not to rank them pretty highly right now. Like they've, even without like a full core, like receiving core, I mean, they're doing it with injuries to the offensive line. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about their opponents. The Saints bother me that they lost that game in the way they did. It was a pretty close game, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that. I agree with you on the Chargers. Like they should have won that game. Like, I'm sorry, but like a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown, like it's not going to happen that often. And it really turned the tide in that game. Justin Herbert just getting banged up. I know he played through it, but the Chargers had to overcome. Well, they didn't overcome. The Chargers got hit with a couple different things there.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a team that if I'm ranking the AFC, like I would put them second personally. I have no problem putting the Chiefs as like a top 5 team either, but I think that the Chargers are probably a better team long term. And I think that if you're betting futures markets, like plus 1,500 is the last I looked. If you're betting, I mean, I'm not going to take the Bills at plus 400 just because it's football, but I think the Chargers right now probably value 10. I think you're getting good value in this line too. It's probably my favorite early line to bet. I might even just bet it down to 6.5, and just because I'm pretty sure it's going to go up by the time we get to Sunday.
We have a little less than a half hour to work with here. By all means, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, get them in Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you're finding us. We'll check them out. Our great production crew, T Pike, Eamon, they will keep an eye on it as well. You got the 3 of us here, and we'll look ahead, but let's look back a little bit on week 2, because again, it's fresh in our minds, not just obviously the blowouts last night, the wins for the Eagles and the Bills, and some of the elite performances that we saw over the course of the weekend. There were some crazy, especially wide receiver stats, some insane stats. I saw our buddy Smizzle tweet out something. I think it was 19 wide receivers. So specifically receivers, 19 receivers had at least 10 targets during week 2 at some point. And I think that was even going into last night, when obviously, that was before Steph Diggs had the, going ham the way he did for the Bills with the 3 touchdowns and 150 yards and a dozen catches. So it was a kind of a nutty week statistically. What kinds of LaMarca early season trends have you seen that have really caught your eye?
Well, I think the big one that I'm taking stock in right now, and it's a team I've been high on. I was on them last week. This was probably a bit of a lucky cover, but I'm all in on the Dolphins, right? I still think we have to figure out if Tua Tagovailoa is like a good quarterback per se, but with the 2 weapons that he has throwing the ball to in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're going to cover up a lot of flaws that Tua may have. Those guys had a combined 360 receiving yards last week. And Tua passed for like 460. A lot of that was just those guys being better than the defenders that were covering them. And I think that that's something that we could see a lot of this year. It's really hard to prep for 2 guys that have that kind of game-changing speed. So the Dolphins, definitely a team that I've moved up since the start of the year. I have them 8th right now in my power ratings. They're a good team. I think that they're legit.
You buying in, Jeff, at 2-0?
To who? Sorry.
The Dolphins.
Oh, the Dolphins. Yeah. For some reason, I thought you said the Vikings for a second. I was like having an aneurysm. The Dolphins. So yeah, I mean,
no, Kirk Cousins wouldn't let that happen in prime time. So don't worry.
I know. The Vikings are, oh my God, the Dolphins. I mean, yeah, like how much credit do we want to give to for last week? Throwing wide open touchdowns on broken plays is just like it's like it's like the most volatile thing to just like completely put a spike in someone's like performance, especially through only 2 weeks of the season, right? So everyone's all in arms. Tua is like league in yards, and he is, and yeah, and like LaMarca's right, like he has 2 high end weapons. I do like the way that Mike McDaniel's calling games. He's passing more early on first downs. That's positive. That's what the Bills do. Like that's what good teams do. They don't just run the ball into the ground on first and second down. So I like that. At the same time, I don't really know how good this team is. Like the Baltimore secondary is terrible, and you should just be playing wide receivers against it all season long. Marcus Peters is dust. Fuller's out. Like I think it's just going to be a spot where people just do spike performances all year. So I don't know how much we can really say with the crazy game script that had, that this is like, oh, well, this Miami team's unstoppable. Probably not. So I think they're a good team. I like their secondary as well, but I would still rank them. It's pretty easy for me to just say, okay, Chiefs, Chargers, Bills, and then, yeah, like the Dolphins are next. They're in that nice tier, but they're not pushing elite for me yet. They definitely deserve a step up, but very interested to see how that team does and how Tua does, taking on a team like the Chargers or something. I mean, they're playing the Bills this week, I think. So
yeah,
like that's going to be, we're going to get the test right away, because that Bills defense is just all over the place, man. They are just, there's so much speed, talent back there. If Tua can get by this and look competent, that's going to be a pretty big notch in his hat.
Well, so there are a few things there with respect to the Dolphins. I think to your last point, very true. It's the Bills are right now, and obviously they're the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl, and they were going into the season. But even ignoring that, if we're just focusing on the AFC East, the Bills are the class of that division at the moment. And I feel like the Dolphins have so much to prove to get up to that level. The defense is not as good. It's a good defense, but it's not as good. The offense obviously has its 2 stud wideouts, but a quarterback that isn't anywhere near the tier and never will be of the tier of a guy like Josh Allen, who, at least so long as he can continue to run over guys, if he doesn't go, the way of all these mobile rushing physical quarterbacks that end up having shorter or less productive careers down the stretch because they get hurt. The longer he can be what we've seen the last couple of years, I mean, watch out. Obviously, it's their division to lose going forward. The thing with Miami that makes me maybe not incline Lamarca to be a true believer is, one, you do have to go through the Bills, as Jeff talked about. And at best, I see them winning 1 out of 2. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if they get swept in their division matchups. And then we'll see if they should happen to clash in the playoffs. But on top of that, Tua, to me, like, I don't fall into the Tua's a bad quarterback the way most people do. But I certainly wouldn't put him any better than average. He is perfectly mediocre. So imagine if Miami actually had a good or above average quarterback throwing the ball to the likes of both Hill and Waddle. Then you would have a team to be reckoned with. But I just don't think, as much a believer as I am in Mike McDaniel, I like him a lot. I just don't think we're there yet. Like, they had to score 28 points in the fourth quarter against Baltimore. That almost never happens, and certainly not going to happen again.
He didn't play good in the first game either. Like, he did not, like, it was not a good game for him at all. That was pretty terrible.
Like, he's up to like 5th in the MVP voting right now, or MVP odds. That's ridiculous.
Throw your money away.
But I'm just saying that I think this team as a whole is better than expected or people giving them credit for, right? Like, are they on the same tier as the Bills? Of course not. Right now, I'm not sure that there's a team in football that's remotely close to the Bills. So do I think that there's value in them winning the division or anything like that? No, but they play games every week, and most of the time it's not against the Bills.
Yeah, I'm curious, the division odds. I'm going to check that. So Buffalo minus 350, Miami plus 400. And then obviously we have a drop off, Patriots plus 1200, and forget about the Jets. Most people would say forget about the Patriots as well. I understand. Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup between those two teams. Big test coming up, like Jeff said. But even before, some more looking ahead, because obviously we do want to do that with another 10 or so minutes to go, or 15 minutes to go. Jeff, you licking your wounds after the Trey Lance injury? You doing okay? You were highly invested, at least, in a figurative sense. I don't know about literal and monetary sense, but in a figurative sense, talking a big game with respect to the Niners going into the year, and a lot of respect for Trey Lance. They could win a dozen or 14 games. Well, now obviously with his injury, he's done, and the Niners either look like geniuses or incredibly lucky as a baseline for keeping Jimmy Garoppolo around, because regardless of what you think of him come playoff time, he is a guy who is a proven regular season winner. This team is going to do just fine.
I mean, that's part of the basis around me liking the 49ers. And I said this multiple times in the preseason. Part of the reason to like the 49ers over and for them to win the division is there's an insurance plan. And like, I wasn't expecting to see it, midway through week 2, but here it is. I mean, like, it's that they have a guy who's won them 10 plus games before. He's done it twice before. So, like, I mean, when disaster strikes, it sucks. I still rather have Trey Lance in there. I think he just gives him a better chance to win shootouts. And I think that his high end is just, if by the end of the season, I think we would have seen it with this offense, and it would have been, not near unstoppable, but it would have been a lot better. But I mean, look, San Francisco allowed 7 points last week. I think they allowed 7 points. It was on a blocked kick. Like, the defense was great. That team can run the ball. It can attack weak linebacker cores. Like, it can do a lot of stuff on offense, even with Garoppolo. We know all that. So the 49ers are just going to go back to doing what they did last year, which got them to the conference championship. And I think that I look at that division, the Rams defense to me has looked like regression. Their offense looks fine just because, they have Cooper Kupp, but I think the Rams are still, a target. Seattle is who we thought they were. The Cardinals are actually kind of interesting. I really like the way Kyler played last week, but I'm not going to project them to win the division here. I think, San Francisco to win the South or whatever division, the West, sorry, NFC West, like, yeah, you should still get on it. Buy into the Garoppolo fear. This is the same team that's won the division 2 of the last 3 years with Garoppolo.
Plus 140 on the DraftKings Sportsbook.
It's not 2. Sorry, they didn't win it last year. What am I talking about? Whatever. You know what I mean.
We're
going
to
good. The 2 of the last 3 years, they've been good.
Yeah, they have been. No, it's true. LaMarca.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, the 49ers front office and coaching staff is probably a little bit relieved, if they're going to be honest with you. Trey Lance is kind of like that exotic, sexy girl you meet in college, but you go out to the bar with her and she gets you into fights with strangers. And maybe one time you wake up and all your clothes are on the front lawn. And Jimmy Garoppolo is like the high school girlfriend you had. You know, she's safe. She cares about you. And now they're back together and it just feels better, right? You know, maybe the upside isn't quite as high, but there's a real safe floor there and you know it. And he's brought them to the NFC Championship game twice. He's brought them to a Super Bowl once. And they have all the same pieces to do it again. So I think
so what you're saying,
he gets along with your parents, right? LaMarca, you can bring him
exactly.
home.
You can
Mom
take
likes
home.
them, you know,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
the kind of person you like to introduce to your family. Basically, what he's saying is that
entertains your crazy relatives at Thanksgiving. Like, it's just perfect. It's a good fit.
if I'm properly following this analogy, I guess that makes the Niners front office like the friend group. Like they're just relieved they don't need to choose sides anymore, and they can be friends
That's
with
the
both.
parents. The parents for sure.
Oh, okay, all right.
They're like, oh, thank God.
Actually, that's definitely they're the parents. Yeah, whatever his name, John Lynch. Yeah, he's dad.
He's dad. Shanahan's
Dad's relieved. He's just, oh, thank God.
Thank God we don't have to do this anymore. It's so tiring.
I mean,
Although
it's true though. Like, there's nobody has to answer the Trey Lance question, and I don't think it was definitely going to be like a nuisance. I don't think it was going to be such a nuisance that it was like, again, you don't want them there, obviously, and you need to develop elite quarterbacks. Like, that's how you win in this league. But Lamarcus got a point. Like, for this season, for this like little macro, like 15 games, 16 games we got left. Like, Garoppolo is just going to calm everybody down. Everyone's just going to be like, okay, we can do what we did last year. It worked. Yeah. Great. The Rams may not be as good. Let's go win the division. So I like the 49ers here.
He clearly has, unsurprisingly, he clearly has allies in that locker room. I mean, you could just see, you could see it from the reaction, the body language on the field. Not to say anyone was, happy Lance went down. That's not my point. But I think there are a lot of guys that are very excited for Jimmy after what was such a weird off season, and told to go practice by yourself on the training field instead of with the first teamers and everybody else, and the will he won't he of being traded and then restructuring the contract and coming back for one last year and working in the no trade clause, and now all of a sudden by week 2, minutes in, he's the starter again for the foreseeable future, and certainly for the rest of this year if he stays healthy. So it's really been something.
There's so much toxic stuff that goes on in the NFL with, I mean, you look at Baker Mayfield and the Browns, and when guys get talked down to, or they have a bad game and coaches get on them, they go blame people and their teammates blame them. Jimmy Garoppolo had every chance to badmouth teammates, to badmouth the organization. What did he do? He got told to go practice by himself. He just went and practiced. He's just like a good guy, obviously, to be around. He's not, you like people like that. That's the kind of people who brings organizations together, that people rally around. They're like, great, he's back. I mean, it's all good. So we're not going to get nonsense. It's so interesting that this happened early, and I hate it because it's killing my best ball teams. But I do like it from the fact that I mentioned that if this happened, the 49ers are going to be fine. And I do think they're going to be fine. And it's the reason why I was bullish on them, just, again, going over and going on them for the division. You got to look at this stuff for the NFL, man. You got to factor in injuries and stuff like that. If you're going over on a team preseason or a player, there's so many ways unders can hit. You've got to really factor in what's going to save your over. And I think the 49ers had a very clear shot at with Garoppolo being there.
So just in the interest of time, LaMarca, we can get off the Niners, look around the NFL a little bit, and I'll pull up the game lines as they stand right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook going into week 3. Are there, you don't have to give us your best bets, so I'll give you the week to think about that, obviously. We'll wait for the DK Nation article come Friday. But in terms of just some early bets that you do like, that you're drawn to a little bit, what stands out to you from Thursday and beyond?
Well, the first one that jumped out to me, like Jeff said, and we talked about already, is the Chargers. It's just funny to me that people have wanted the Chargers to be good for so long, and now they're good. And it's yeah, whatever, we're on to the next thing. This is a spot where they should just be getting pounded, I think. So I'm like Jeff, I locked them in early. I think this line is going to go up. The other one that kind of stood out to me here is the Giants. And again, we're going all the way to Monday Night Football, so apologies. But I think that the Giants being favored by 2.5, it was 3. It's already down to 2.5. I don't see that against this Cowboys team. The Cowboys really impressed me last week. I think that the way that their defense plays is going to keep them in a lot of ball games. And their offensive line looked much better against Cincinnati than it did the week prior against Tampa Bay. And I don't think you have to worry necessarily about the Giants pass rush. So Cooper Rush and their offense that they have should be fine. You know, CeeDee Lamb is good. Tony Pollard is good. Zeke Elliott is there. And the Giants, even though they are 2-0, have they done anything that you feel good about? Like, they beat the Panthers at home, who might be the worst team in the league. And in week 1, they beat the Titans, who just got their doors blown off by the Bills in a game that the Giants were losing by 3 touchdowns. Don't forget that. So I think that this Giants team is overvalued at the moment. I will take the Cowboys as road underdogs.
That Barkley and Zeke matchup isn't what it once was, huh? Just in terms of, poster children from Monday Night Football. I guess Barkley was really good in week 1, very quiet in week 2 until it got late in garbage time. And then obviously, we've seen it. It feels like a million times before. Zeke, as soon as you take Dak out, he's just not the same guy.
Zeke's just not that good, right? Yeah. He's getting paid all the money, so he's going to be a factor. Because until somebody other than Jerry Jones makes the decisions, that's Jerry's guy, right? He loves Zeke. Right. But Tony Pollard is just the better player.
So Moose, how about you? Any games, bets, lines, whatever it may be that stand out to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we're coming off Monday night. We've got, obviously, the Eagles, the Vikings look like trash, and you've got the Titans who look like trash. So whenever a team looks like trash on primetime, you've got to look for the overreaction. Unfortunately, like, these lines that opened up here, like, I like Detroit but I'm not going to bet them right now. Like, I'm going to wait. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do with Detroit. I may even end up betting Detroit, but they're obviously getting bets coming in at 6. I mean, like, it's a big, it just feels too big for a Detroit offense that's really clicked and obviously covered this number easily against the Eagles. So that's an interesting one. I mean, I don't have a problem with jumping on the Lions early. It feels like a little bit of an overreaction to the Vikings, but that's probably one I'll just leave. The one I like the most right now is actually the Texans, a +3. The Texans played the Colts to the tie. They should have won that game. They would have probably if they had run Dameon Pierce instead of Rex Burkhead. But they rectified that last week. I think that's big. Look, I think Denver's a good team. Like, they have a good defense. I know that their offense has been trash lately, but like, you've got to give like Derek Stingley some credit here. He's been really good. Their defense has been scrappy. They've got Lovie Smith, and they're playing a Bears team who, like, I don't even know what are they doing on offense? What are the Chicago Bears actually doing when they get out on offense? They don't do anything. And you want them to cover 3 points against an actual like NFL team? No, I mean, we'll take Davis Mills here to cover on the road. Absolutely. So I'm hitting up the Texans here. Maybe we'll even get to 3.5. I don't know. Like, the line seems neutral. Nobody really wants to believe that the Texans are like half decent here. So that's one that really jumps out. I mean, like, just like the Bears covering a number. No, thanks. I have some interest in the Cardinals too, but I don't know. I don't have that much interest. So maybe I should just shut up about that. I may end up.
I'm with you, Jeff. I like the Cardinals in that game.
I really like the way Kyler played last week. I like. Maybe I should just trust it. Yeah.
And the Rams are favored. What were you going to say, LaMarca?
I think that like, collectively, for the first 7 quarters of the Cardinals season, like, Kyler Murray just hasn't been right. I don't know what's been going on, but you saw in the 4th quarter of that Raiders game, like, this guy can single-handedly win football games by himself. Yeah. So I'm hoping that will reignite Kyler's season. Maybe they'll get Rondale Moore back. I don't know if that's going to help him, but at least it's somebody. I have to imagine he's better than like Greg Dortch, although Greg Dortch rules. but
Yeah,
I
he's
still
good.
think Rondale Moore is better. So I'm with Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff there. I have the Cardinals as a play for sure. One other game I want to talk about: Packers Bucks. It's an incredibly intriguing game. Both of these teams, like, I don't think they could have had much worse starts to the year, at least offensively. The Bucks have managed to survive, but their quarterback literally looks like the guy from the Scream painting. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah,
he looks like he might
Those cheekbones are getting a little too high for comfort, is what you're saying.
too high. I
High.
think Father Time might finally be catching up to him, but at the same time,
That's not Father Time. That's Doctor Time. That's taking care of that.
I have just not been impressed by the Packers at all.
yeah.
And I think just the Bucks defense alone should make them favored by at least a field goal here.
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from that game.
Well, there's no Mike
I'm just
Evans,
gonna check
obviously.
my Brady
We
bias
don't know yet if
because
Godwin's back.
That's a fair point. The no Mike Evans thing,
they
Mike
signed
Evans
Cole
is probably not worth more than like a point or so against the spread, probably even less. But if you combine him with Chris Godwin and Julio Jones, who are both out, then we're starting to get questionable. But it's we're gonna have to just wait and see how that happens. It's not a game that I'm locking in right now, like the Chargers are, but again, I think based on my calculations, my calculated spreads, I have this closer to 3.5.
We've got a few minutes left. We didn't even mention the Thursday night game, which is obviously the next one to kick off week 3, and that's the Steelers and Browns. Both these teams are coming off of losses to the AFC East. The Steelers were not particularly good at home against the Patriots, and the Pats' first win. Of course, the Browns absolutely collapsed against your beloved New York Jets, LaMarca. So what's the outlook between these two rivals here?
One team can only take so much, right? The Browns, you can only hold off a Jets team with that much talent for so long.
That's right.
I like the Steelers in this game. Again, I think that the Steelers have kind of been undervalued. I love Mike Tomlin as an underdog. We talked about it in week 1 when they were getting 7 against the Bengals. Obviously losing TJ Watt hurts, but the Browns, even though they played better against the Jets, I don't think they're very good. I think both of these teams are basically average. So I think 4.5 points is a lot to be giving this team.
Jeff, what do you think?
It's a lot, like 4.5. At the same time, I'm not really with LaMarca in saying the Steelers are good. Like, I mean, they should have lost week 1, and they did. Like, from a covering perspective, absolutely. And their defense gives them some opportunities, but they're still down their best playmaker. The offense is just stale. The Browns, I mean, like, I don't even know. This game is just ugly. I think I'm just going to bet the under here, to be honest, because I don't really want to take.
Wow.
Like it seems like a lot of points. It seems like we should just be jumping on the Steelers, but that just worries me that everyone's going to do that. So I don't know. I almost might see this one. I'm probably going to wait. If it gets down to like 3.5, I might jump on the Browns, but I just don't really trust the Steelers. I mean, they still have Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. We'll see. I mean, I'm happy to just sit and watch this game. It just seems like it seems like a weird line. It seems weird. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but why are we giving the Browns at home this much? I don't know, this much respect.
I just don't. Say what you will, obviously, the Steelers defense, which has been.
I mean, look, like the Browns cover last week. Like the Browns cover last week if Nick Chubb takes a knee. Like they cover like easily.
Yeah.
This is the weirdness of football. Like you've got to look. You say, well, the Browns lost last week to the Jets. It's just like one little kneel down, and all of a sudden, not only do the Browns win, but they win by like 13 points. They cover easily, and like this line is maybe like 5.5, 6. I mean,
surrendered 400 yards to the Jets, 300 passing yards to Joe Flacco.
But no, and again, but like how much of that came in the last like minute and a half? Like I don't.
They all count, Jeff.
I know. Probably just take the points with the Steelers. It's probably not. It's probably the play. It's Mike Tomlin covering in these spots is ridiculous. I know for a fact that like I'm probably just going to lay off this one.
I just find their offensive strategy to be bizarre, especially having watched last week's game a little bit closer than I do typically with the Steelers. Trubisky's not a good quarterback, so I don't expect good things from Mitch Trubisky, but I do wonder, why not just air it out more? Like you
don't have an O-line. They don't have time. They can't give him time. I actually think their strategy is,
you got talented receivers there.
It looks terrible because they're rolling them out. They're trying to do short throws. They're throwing in the middle, but they can't sit back there and do it because their O-line can't give them time. Yeah. So I'd like to see them activate him more in the running game. It's always been one of Trubisky's best strengths. Yeah. And for some reason, he just hasn't run, that final year in Chicago and so far in Pittsburgh. So let's get him moving, right? We can get, he's not so valuable that you need to keep him behind that offensive line all game.
Yeah. It's true. Any parting thoughts, boys, before we get on here into the world of Madden Sims?
No.
Nothing.
Have a good day.
All right. Well, yeah, have a good day. On to the baseball bets this evening for LaMarca, and Jeff readies you for golf and all of that. Well, if you don't know, if you happen to be joining us for the first time, this show, I'll be with a rotating cast of characters, comes your way after the 4:00 Madden Sim, right around 5:15 Eastern time, Monday through Friday, same place. You can always check us out. We appreciate it. Typically, this time of year, talking football, but we do mix in some baseball and golf as well. Basketball's not too far away, so that's exciting. And, of course, the sweat, which is of a different variety, but with many of the same talent, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, across all the DraftKings channels as well. Make sure you watch that also, as there will be a lot of NFL talk throughout the week, readying you for the start of Week 3. So, for Eamon, for T-Pike, LaMarca, Jeff, I'm Adam. We'll catch you again tomorrow. See ya.